The series begins with Min, a first-year high school student whose school life is a living hell. On his way to school, he even wishes he could get into an accident and fall into a coma, only to wake up after graduation. Arrives at school, we learn why his life is so miserable. His classmate Suk is standing on the roof of the building, then suddenly jumps. Min remembers how things reached that point. Some time ago, the school bullies handed Suk the outcast stick. Whoever held it became the school's official outcast, the person everyone mocked and humiliated. Unfortunately, Min was too scared to stand up to them. After suffering at their hands for so long, he was relieved that someone else had become their target. We then learn why they turned on Suk. Earlier, Yun, the most influential student in the class, was watching a lecture video while the teacher was explaining the same lesson. Out of simple courtesy, she told him that wasn't appropriate since she was teaching. The rude student replied that her explanation was terrible and began humiliating her. At that moment, Suk finally snapped and punched him, telling him he had had enough. Because of that, the bullies made Suk their new victim. Min witnessed everything but couldn't object. When he tried reporting the situation to the teachers, he discovered they were terrified themselves. 2 years earlier, a teacher at another school had been killed by a student. Realizing that no one would save students like him and Suk, Min lost all hope. Suk understood that reality too. The police arrived to investigate. For the first time, Min felt a spark of hope that his suffering might finally end. The bullies quickly crushed that hope, telling him the police would never do anything, and they were right. The case was closed, and Min was forced back into his role as the school outcast. He even tried doing what Suk had done, but he couldn't go through with it. Later, while returning to class, another bully started beating him for no reason. As usual, nobody stepped in. Then suddenly, a man appeared and knocked the bully away. Everyone was stunned. The bully got up to fight back, but the man beat him down even harder and said, "Show some respect, kid. I'm older than you." Hyun and his gang demanded to know who he was. The man introduced himself as the new teacher. Hyun immediately protested, saying teachers weren't allowed to hit students, and ordered everyone to film the incident. Another bully mocked him, saying, "What, teacher? You can't hit me now that the cameras are rolling?" The man calmly replied, "You asked for it," and hit him anyway, right in front of the cameras. Everyone was completely shocked. Even the principal came to question him. The man introduced himself as an inspector from the Office of Educational Protection, a newly established government organization created to deal with students who didn't care when their classmates died from bullying, and with schools that covered up such incidents. The principal insisted that no one was allowed to hit students. The inspector replied that at their office, physical discipline was permitted when words weren't enough. The principal took him to his office and explained that his methods wouldn't work there because some students came from powerful families. The inspector answered that he intended to take charge of Suk's class, the very class that contained those influential students. They warned him about Hyun, whose father was a major figure in the National Party. The inspector simply smiled and said, "Then he'll be my favorite student." When he entered the classroom, the bullies immediately realized they were in trouble. He started taking attendance until he reached Suk's name. Then he asked everyone if they knew why Suk had died. One student jokingly replied that Suk couldn't handle failing in school and stupidly killed himself. The inspector immediately grabbed him and struck him in front of the entire class. "Even after your classmate died, you still feel no remorse." When he noticed they were at least slightly uncomfortable, he ordered everyone to do push-ups. Hyun told them to stay seated. The inspector repeated the order. Nobody moved. Hyun smirked and said, "Looks like they're more afraid of me than you." The inspector grabbed Hyun's head and slammed it onto his desk. "Come on, show me your courage. Start doing push-ups." Terrified, Hyun obeyed. The rest quickly followed. At lunchtime, Hyun once again bullied other students and cut in line. The inspector stopped him and said, "Are you this pathetic in everything you do? Get to the back of the line if you want food." Hyun ignored him, took food by force, and threw it away. The inspector kicked him and said, "Sorry, kid, I can't tolerate anyone disrespecting food." Then he ordered him to clean up the mess. By the end of the day, Hyun was furious. He took his anger out on poor Min and went home, leaving his friends behind to clean. Then came an even bigger shock. The inspector went straight to Hyun's house. He met Hyun's father, Ryu, and bluntly told him, "I'm taking your son. Since you never raised him properly, he can help his friends finish their work." Ryu was stunned by his audacity and warned him not to interfere. The inspector simply replied, "Make me regret it," then dragged Hyun away by the ear and forced him to clean bathrooms. To frame the inspector, Hyun slammed his own head into something and called his father. The inspector dismissed it, saying, "Your idiot son hurt himself. How is that my fault?" Meanwhile, Hyun continued tormenting Min as usual. When the inspector learned about it, he told Min that if he couldn't defend himself, it was okay to run away. Then he began training him to run every day. Later, they ate dinner together. The inspector suggested telling his parents. Min revealed that his parents were always busy with work. The inspector told him he could rely on trustworthy adults instead. For the first time, Min felt hope. As for Ryu, Hyun's father, warned that he and the other influential parents wouldn't stay silent and demanded that the Office of Educational Protection be shut down. Then, he left for an important press conference connected to his upcoming election campaign. However, when he arrived, he found himself surrounded by reporters exposing his bribery scandals and affairs with women. Trying to hide, he entered a hall and found the minister waiting inside. The minister revealed that he had arranged everything. When Ryu demanded to know why, the minister explained that he had spent 2 years preparing this office and that anyone who opposed it would meet the same fate. Ryu argued that many politicians were worse than him. The minister replied, "You're not the target, your son is. When you fall, your son falls too." Soon afterward, Ryu was arrested. At school, Hyun became the new target of bullying. The students handed him the outcast stick. Driven to the edge, he decided to burn them all alive. When the inspector arrived, he stood before him smoking a cigarette. Hyun panicked because gasoline had already been poured around him. He begged the inspector to put out the lighter. Instead, the inspector frightened him even more by throwing it. Hyun ran desperately from the flames, begging for mercy. Only then did the inspector extinguish the fire. He reminded Hyun that Suk had also been terrified of death. But because Hyun had destroyed his life through bullying, Suk saw no other choice. No matter how much Hyun repented, Suk would never come back. He would have to live with that guilt forever. We then see what really happened. When Hyun bullied Suk, Suk refused to stay silent. He brought his father to the school and reported everything to the principal. Because of Hyun's father's influence, nothing happened. Instead, they advised Suk's father to transfer him to another school. They even ruined the father's job. Desperate, Suk begged Hyun to spare his father and promised to do anything. Hyun coldly replied, "Simple, kill yourself." Tragically, Suk did exactly that. Now, the fear is unclear. Soon afterward, Hyun and the other bullies are arrested when Suk's case is reopened. At last, they will face justice. The inspector later visits the grave of a girl who died 2 years earlier. The minister is there as well. Both men are still grieving her death. Many people argue that no government office should have the right to hit students. Reporters attack the minister and ask where human rights fit into all this. The minister becomes furious. Where are human rights? Students are dying every day because of bullying. Teachers are terrified. Many students only come to school to mark attendance before going to private academies. I'm not against tutoring, but it's our duty as the Ministry of Education to provide a safe environment for students, even if that requires force. He adds that students today are no longer like they used to be. Some are involved with gangs. Anyone who stands in the way of education will be held accountable. The gang issue turns out to be very real. Later, we meet a new student transferring to a technical school called Khan. The school looks more like an abandoned building than a place of learning. He finally spots another student, only for the boy to immediately try attacking him. Terrified, the newcomer offers him money to protect him. The student feels sorry for him and warns him that this school is unlike any other. The new student becomes even more frightened. When he enters the classroom and introduces himself, everyone looks like gang members. He quietly sits down, but before he can even open his book, the others knock him over. Then, they all tell the teacher they forgot their books. The teacher completely loses hope and leaves. The students immediately grab weapons and start copying one another. They head to the electrical department, where one student wants someone from the design department to draw a tattoo on his chest. Meanwhile, the first department starts fighting the second department, beating each other senseless. The new student, Bon, has no idea what is happening. His only calm classmate, Joe, explains that the electrical department and the automotive department constantly fight to attract the attention of their leader. Bon asks who that leader is. At the same time, the principal explains the situation to the inspector. The leader is a student named Hyuk. Although he rarely attends school, he belongs to a gang outside of it. His social media is filled with luxury brands, money, alcohol, and wild parties. The students constantly fight to earn his attention. One day, Hyuk suddenly sends a message to the head of the electrical department, saying he wants to meet him. The fighting immediately stops. The automotive department leader becomes jealous and starts beating his own followers. He even forces Bon and Joe to fight each other. Joe quietly tells Bon to pretend. Bon does exactly that. Afterward, Joe is declared the loser and becomes their personal punching bag. They use him to measure their strength by beating him and having him rate their attacks. It is humiliating beyond words. Joe endures everything. Later, while walking home, he becomes exhausted. Bon feels sorry for him, carries his bag, and walks him home. Joe invites him inside for ramen. Bon sees how simple Joe's life is with his mother and realizes how much Joe genuinely wants to build a future through school. The next day, Bon encounters the inspector. When the inspector sees him, we learn that Bon is actually one of his employees, not a student. Because Bon looked innocent enough to become a bullying victim, the inspector planted him in the school to secretly record everything through his glasses. Now, the inspector gives him a dangerous new mission. Provoke all the students and make them chase him. Bon insults them and runs. The entire school chases after him until they reach the athletic field. Once everyone is inside, the inspector enters and locks the gates. He introduces himself. One student immediately recognizes him. They boast that they aren't ordinary students and can't be controlled like the others. The inspector simply asks, "What's so special about you?" They rush him. A moment later, every one of them is lying on the ground. After that, they obey him like beaten dogs. He introduces a strict new schedule, filled with classes to make up for everything they had missed. When they try objecting, he beats them again. Then he brings in a teacher who can hardly believe the level of discipline. When he asks where their books are, only Joe has one. The inspector orders Joe to write the lesson on the board, while everyone else copies it. The students claim they don't even have pens. The inspector looks at the head of the electrical department and says, "Well, your finger still works, doesn't it?" And he makes it very clear that excuses are no longer going to save anyone. He cut his finger and used his own blood to write. Then, he grabbed a pen and continued writing, while everyone else ran around borrowing pens so they could copy the lesson too. Less than 5 minutes later, they looked up and discovered he had already erased everything from the board. The time is up. Anyone who hadn't finished writing got beaten. The head of the automotive department finally exploded in anger. "What is this? These classes aren't important anyway." The inspector replied, "You know what? You're right. Come on, men. Let's do some practical work." He took them all to a car and asked them to inspect it. When they refused, he grabbed the leaders of both departments, threw them into the vehicle, and took them on a smooth, controlled ride that demonstrated real driving skill. The students ended up respecting him because of it. Unfortunately, those two still learned nothing. They decided to run away from school and complain to Hyok. The problem was that they didn't know how to contact him. While searching Ban, they found something that could help, so they forced him to come with them. They finally met Hyok and complained about the inspector. That night, when the inspector asked where they had gone, they returned looking delighted. They confidently declared that the inspector was finished, that his remaining days were numbered now that Hyok was involved. Soon afterward, Hyok arrived on his motorcycle, making a dramatic entrance. Honestly, he looked far. He tried attacking the inspector. The inspector revealed that he had deliberately left bait to lure Hyok out. At first, it looked as if Hyok might actually defeat him. He even managed to throw the inspector to the ground. The students thought it was over. Hyok proudly told them, "See? If anyone bothers you, just tell me. You're all under my protection." The students were about to start chanting his name when they suddenly heard another voice joining in. The inspector was chanting too. Everyone froze. Then the inspector stood up and stopped playing around. This time, he hit Hyok seriously. The students were terrified. Meanwhile, the minister was attending a meeting with another politician. They criticized the inspector, arguing that he wasn't suitable for the office because he was a former soldier. "What does a soldier have to do with education?" The minister replied, "Look at the students today. Do you really think ordinary teachers can handle them? These kids have become monsters. If we want to teach them discipline, we need people who can fight monsters." At that very moment, Hyok called the gang he belonged to and asked for backup. They arrived immediately. Hyok thought he was saved. Instead, everyone watched in horror as the inspector completely crushed them too. Mercy and repeatedly apologized. The inspector told them not to apologize to him. He told them to apologize to Joe. Joe initially tried to act like it was no big deal. Then he suddenly broke down crying. What they had done to him had truly hurt. The inspector told them that if they weren't interested in education, they could simply leave school, but they had no right to waste other students' time. "Your classmates' time doesn't belong to you. Later, the minister held a press conference and spoke about the achievements at Khan's school. He announced several new rules. No student would be allowed to have tattoos anymore. Anyone with tattoos would have them removed. Any student who joined a gang would be treated as an adult criminal and would no longer be protected under juvenile law. Motorcycles and smoking were also prohibited. The results were significant. Life at Khan's school improved dramatically. For the first time, Joe was genuinely learning alongside his classmates. The minister and the inspector were delighted by the success. Then, Ban appeared to complain. He wanted compensation because he had spent a lot of his own money during the mission. Bribes here, expenses there, and money lost while being bullied. The amount was ridiculously small. The others humored him and told him to file a request and he would get his money back. At the same time, the politician who had demanded the closure of the office was a picture from the funeral of the girl who had died 2 years earlier. The minister and the inspector were standing there, devastated. We learned that the inspector had actually been engaged to her. Even after 2 years, he still hadn't overcome the injustice of what happened to her or the way she died. The story then takes us back 2 years. The inspector and his fiancée were walking together when they spotted students smoking. He told her not to interfere. Students these days are frightening. She replied, "So what? Are you going to protect me forever? Our lives will only become harder." She approached the students, took away their cigarettes, and tried to advise them. Sadly, there came a day when he couldn't protect her. One of her students, a boy notorious for causing trouble, killed her. During the trial, the student claimed he regretted it and insisted he had words and could barely control himself. In his rage, he tried to run the student over with his car. The minister stopped him. We then learned that the woman had been the minister's daughter. Once the inspector calmed down, the minister told him that killing the student would accomplish nothing except destroying his own future. Instead, he planned to create an office after becoming Minister of Education, an office that would seek justice for wrong teachers like his daughter. If the inspector wanted to help, he could join him, and that is exactly what happened. Now, for the first time, they take on a case at a girls' school. The case revolves around a teacher accused of harassing a student. The student uploaded a video accusing him. Shortly afterward, the teacher took his own life. The alleged victim wasn't an ordinary student. She was a famous Instagram influencer with more than 600,000 followers. Bon admits he is worried about taking the case because the girl is extremely famous and they really don't need more controversy. The minister replies, "What? Are we supposed to be afraid too? Isn't it enough that an innocent teacher was terrified into death?" We then learn why they are certain the teacher was innocent. The famous girl was usually distracted in class and constantly live streaming. One day, her teacher confiscated her phone. To get revenge, she uploaded an edited video making it look like the teacher was cutting another student's hair. Everyone immediately attacked the teacher online. When confronted, the teacher explained that she had only been helping the student, not threatening her. Nobody believed her, except a colleague. That colleague promised to resolve the issue with Yoon. He called Yoon into his office and told her he had seen her editing the video. He knew she had intentionally made the teacher look bad. Yoon denied everything. He advised her to delete the video and become a better person. He was especially confused because her academic records showed she had always been an excellent student with no history of conflicts with teachers. So what had suddenly changed? She immediately disheveled her clothes and appearance, recorded a video, and falsely accused him of assaulting her. The entire country exploded. Even his wife called to ask if it was true. Internet users investigated him, discovered all of his personal information, and even found the schools attended by his young children. Influencers constantly appeared outside his home to film and expose him. The man couldn't endure it. Eventually, he died. Did people show mercy afterward? Not at all. Some even attended his funeral to film content, insisting that his death didn't erase what he had supposedly done. The teacher named John became extremely upset and confronted Yoon. She begged her to tell the truth because it was impossible that the teacher had harmed her. Yoon burst into tears. "Why would I lie?" Then it turned out she was live streaming. She told her followers, "Fine, everyone. I'll upload a clarification because the teacher is forcing me." The public immediately turned against John as well. To calm the situation, the principal invited Yoon into his office and asked what she wanted. She replied that John should become the homeroom teacher for their class instead of the previous teacher, Ko. When John arrived, the students immediately became suspicious. She must be here to get revenge for what happened to Yoon. In their eyes, Yoon was now the victim. All of it was the result of her own manipulation. After finishing the report, Ban asked what role he would play in the mission. The others jokingly suggested he disguise himself as a female student, just imagining it was horrifying. After everyone finished laughing, the inspector reassured them a woman from their team would go instead. We soon meet her. Her name is Han, and introduces herself. Nobody pays attention. Yoon is live streaming as usual. The moment she notices Han, she decides to target her. She tells a friend to ask Han where she got her plastic surgery. Maybe she can even show everyone a photo from before. The insult is obvious. Han calmly replies, "Sure, sweetheart, I had breast reduction surgery. But you girls obviously don't need that." The entire class is stunned. Then Han tells Yoon to end the live stream. Yoon challenges her. "Why don't you tell them yourself?" Instead of answering with words, Han kicks the phone out of her hand and smashes it onto the floor. Her voice completely changes. "All right, you little brats, hand over your phones." She uses a device to locate all the phones they have hidden. Then she introduces herself as a member of the protection office. She orders surveillance cameras installed throughout the hallways and explains the rules. The most important rule: no one disobeys her orders. At the same time, the inspector introduces himself to the teachers. He tells them that anyone who has suffered harm from students should report it. The principal immediately claims that their students are angels. The inspector obviously doesn't believe him. Han begins putting the girls through harsh exercises. Later, she meets with the inspector and Ban. They reveal that she also served in the military alongside the inspector. Ban is impressed. Then he realizes she might be slightly insane. Even the inspector tells her that everything is permitted with the students except killing them. That statement doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Later, Han tells Ban that the most dangerous place in the school is the cafeteria. He discovers she is right during break time. The girls rush in, grab whatever they want through intimidation, and leave without paying. At the end of the day, Han catches Yoon and the others trying to leave without cleaning up after themselves. When she stops them, Yoon casually says that Teacher Jun will clean it for them. Han immediately grabs her and forces her to clean. "If you use a place, you clean it. Why should we clean up after you?" After finishing her work, Han goes to the office. The inspector asks her to investigate the girls' social media accounts and search for posts defaming teachers. Han promptly falls asleep and leaves the evidence to the students and politely explains that if they repeat any of it, they will face defamation lawsuits. The girls begin discussing everything that is happening. Once again, they bring up Ko and Yeon. They admit that they had always believed Ko was innocent. Just then,